Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 9 of the Game Out Talk podcast. My guest today is Hannah Watts. She's 27 years old and works as a senior prop artist for Ubisoft Reflections in Newcastle. Hey, Hannah, amazing we could figure out the recording and episode. How are you doing today?
Hello, thank you for having me on. It's a real pleasure to be here.
So, as a common thing, give the listeners a short introduction of yourself. What are you currently doing? How is your life going on in this crazy world nowadays?
Sure. I work at Ubisoft Reflections. I've been here just coming up to 2 months. Prior to that, I was working as art lead at Coatsink, which is also in the northeast of England. That was mostly like VR games and Switch games, so much more indie. But I also worked as a senior contract artist for Decagon, who do outsourcing and asset packs.
Yeah.
I've been in the industry about 5 years, I think. I graduated in 2014, but I briefly worked in web development, so I don't count that.
Okay. So you switched jobs during this quarantine. So how was it? You didn't meet any of your stuff, right? Any of your stuff or
No.
coworkers?
So obviously I met the guys that interviewed me back in February, I think. But yeah, the rest of my team. I know one person on my team, but the rest of the team I've not met outside of video calls. So yeah, it's a strange situation onboarding during a quarantine, but it's gone pretty smoothly actually, and I've kind of adjusted to working from home now.
Okay. Yeah, I think you have worked from home before, right? When you were a contract artist for Decagon. So
Well, that was at the same time as I worked for Coasting. So yeah,
okay.
I would come home and work in the evening. So yeah, I've obviously got my setup. I'm used to freelancing. I'm lucky that I have my own office, so I have that kind of.
Oh, that's a great.
Once I cross over the threshold, it's like I'm in work mode, and yeah, I don't really use my PC for gaming anymore. Even though I spec'd it out so that I could. I don't really. So yeah, it's pretty much just my work machine now.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. You always have an amazing work machine, and you don't play any games, and you just use it for work.
I know, and I actually have like a WASD tattoo on my wrist from when I was 18, and I just feel like a massive fraud now because I don't play any.
So let's come a bit more on the art side. So as you being a senior prop artist, can you give me a short glimpse of what makes a perfect prop?
Sure. I guess it very much depends on the context.
Yeah.
I think there's different answers depending on what the project is, what the art style is. But I'd say in terms of portfolio, so for my stuff, I make a lot of mine just for fun and for practice and just to like develop skills. But so if you are making stuff for your portfolio, then I think a lot of it comes down to textures and materials now. There's such a drive to have materials that respond how they would in real life, and I think people's eyes, like even just non-game dev eyes, are starting to adjust and can tell when something is not looking right. So I'd say like stuff like dust and residue building up as you would expect in real life is like a real big one that I think people are starting to click onto. Like there's a lot of advice out there about damage and wear and dirt that makes sense. I think people are transitioning away. Like when smart materials and generators were new, like a few years ago, I think there was a tendency for them to be like slapped onto art and just left.
Yeah,
but I think people shift, like as a whole, are shifting away from that now. That's people are starting to. I'm seeing a lot more convincing props on ArtStation, basically. So yeah, definitely attention to detail in the textures and materials, and using reference and dissecting reference. But also I'd say like always a good wireframe. I actually don't show my wireframes like a huge amount, but it's just like good practice things, like save your geometry for where you need it. Stuff that affects the silhouette, you want to use a lot of geometry on like round things and maybe not so much on like flat things because you
Flat,
don't need
yeah.
it. So just being mindful of that, use it where you need it. Just good practice.
So, like, you can say that all your portfolio stuff, these are all hero props, as a prop artist would call it, right?
Yeah. So
So,
yeah, a lot of like stuff I do in production would not be
yeah,
as meticulous
I
as
want,
that.
and that's what I want to hear, the real difference when it comes, also when it comes to speed, because the development, yeah, speed is time is always a big huge value when it comes to game
Mhm.
development. So, do you have the time to, yeah, to crank out the details in a game, in an in-game prop, as you will be working on?
If you were working on something that was a hero prop,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, you could probably make an argument that you need the extra time. Um, but yeah, for everything else, the player isn't gonna. Well, not every player is gonna get their face like right up to a prop and be inspecting like the stickers and the metal plaques on them and stuff. So yeah, you do have to make some shortcuts and you have to know like like what corners can be cut in terms of detail. Like, and I think a lot. Actually, I used to work in like stylized art,
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of working stylized is knowing how to take a reference and abstract it, and take out like boil it down to its core essence. And I think some of that does apply to just like, let's just say like generic props, that you have to, as you say, crank out. Um, what do you need to get in that prop so it communicates what it is and what it does without spending, days on something that a player might not ever see. It might be in shadow or something.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that is like, silhouette, using accurate materials. Scale obviously is a big one. So yeah, it's very rare that I would spend. I mean, like I think the coffee machine that I did that everyone seems to know
Yeah.
about. I think I did that over like a couple of weekends because I hadn't really worked with a really really shiny metal before. Like my props prior to that were quite, they were all dielectrics and they were quite rough. So it took me a while to figure out how to get convincing shiny metal and how to get the wear on it right. But yeah, you wouldn't have, like 4 or 5 days to work on something like that in
On just a
production.
coffee machine, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like it, and you wouldn't even need to worry about like the tiny little minuscule wipes.
Yeah.
You'd put some on, but you wouldn't worry about like hand painting it on all the crevices,
Yeah.
because it's just, it's diminishing returns at that point.
Yeah, but that's where the heart of the artists are really going
Hmm.
away.
That's
Um,
why I do a lot of personal stuff. Is if I do want to do something really meticulous, and if I find it therapeutic, then I can do that in my personal work where I have the luxury of time.
yeah, that's a luxury. So, would you say that the your portfolio only has to consist of hero props?
Um, it depends what you're going in
Mm-hmm.
for. I've discussed this a little bit in a few articles and podcasts I've done,
Okay.
but my so I obviously have an experience of working in the game industry already. I've been an art lead and I've worked with pipelines and I've worked in the engine. I've dealt with like the production side of things. Um, so I have that to contribute to my portfolio. But if you're coming in straight from uni, obviously you won't have the experience of like, or if you're self-trained as well, not just if you're coming off uni, but you won't have the years of experience to kind of back up your portfolio, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say in those situations, it's better to show like a mix. Like definitely have one or two hero props that you go absolutely ham on, and you just get them looking really nice and really nicely rendered. But I think if maybe in like an offline portfolio that you take to an interview or something, maybe if you have some examples of more generic props, just so you can talk about your processes, because I
Mm-hmm.
think that's really important at interviews, is to talk about how you would approach different tasks or kind of what workflows you're used to. Obviously, like a really quick prop that, you're just shoving in your Unreal scene or whatever you might not want to put on ArtStation, but maybe like a blog or something a bit more informal. I use Twitter a lot for my work in progresses, for example.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a bit of a mixed answer, I guess, but yeah, no linear path really.
So I just saw your Flip Normals prop tutorial, and I also will put it in the info box so people can check it out. Um, how did you plan the tutorial? Did you just make it one by yourself and then make one guided tour, or did you start it from bottom? How was your approach to creating a tutorial in this huge thing, not just the small tips and tricks?
Um, well, it was a challenge. I'd never done something like that before. And the guys at Flip Normals, like they were really great. They just said, we want you to make a tutorial on this, but the subject and how you structure it is totally up to you. So at first that was a little bit intimidating because I didn't know how to structure it. Obviously, I've watched some tutorials in the past, so you kind of have an understanding of what is easy to digest and what isn't. So at first, before I got into any of the planning, I just wanted to pick the prop. I wanted to pick something that had a few different material definitions on it and had a fair bit of detail. If this was going to be like a 4 or 5 hour tutorial, it needed to be fairly complex so that I could demonstrate different workflows and different approaches and, what to think about when you're putting in those details. So I kind of just spent an evening just looking through eBay and museums and like online museum collections and stuff because I knew I wanted to do something like fairly antique because they have the best, in my opinion, they have the best flair. And there was a few things that I thought about. I thought about doing like an antique calculator, and I think I was looking at like a welding, like a blowtorch thing at one point. I had to make sure I was searching ArtStation to make sure that there wasn't already like loads of whatever I was going to make. And the gas meter, I discovered them on like actually a Wikipedia that is from my hometown, which is in the northwest of England. And there was all these stories about like people had put their stories about like the gas man coming around, and there were always like fun little anecdotes. And obviously they look really nice. Like they're quite, they're like a mundane object, but in terms of design, they look quite nice. So I ended up going with that. Then in terms of planning, at first I tried to model and talk over the top of it, and it is so hard. Like I just couldn't do it. Like I was listening back to the recordings, and I would just like stop halfway through a sentence and forget what I was saying.
Yeah.
So I think I did about half an hour of that before I realized that was absolutely not the approach I was going to take. I think you have to be quite practiced.
Yeah.
So then I just kind of wrote a very loose script for each section, and I would try and not read it one to one because I was aware that could sound quite inorganic. So yeah, I just ended up going with the scripted route, and I recorded my audio because I used DaVinci Resolve to edit it, which is a free program. So I just recorded my audio as I was editing it, and it just went straight over the video. So yeah, it was a fun challenge. Not something I've done before. Really big time investment. I think I underestimated how much time it would
just
take.
see your duration. It's like 5 hours recording time, and I think it will be like the 4 times the 5 hours, I guess, in just preparation and recording and back and forth and trying out stuff, right?
Oh, totally. I actually remember I was speaking to one of my friends Mike Kinsey, who has done like a lot of, I think he's done like a lot of ArtStation learning videos and stuff.
Yeah,
and
for Blender.
I was speaking to him, I was like, I've been editing for 2 hours and I've only got 30 seconds done. I was like, is this normal? And he was just like, yeah, unfortunately. But I got quicker as it went on. It's just not something.
Yeah, I think it's a practice.
Oh, totally.
You will
I
have
mean, I went to a media arts college.
Mhm.
Well, my high school was supposedly a media arts college, and I think I did a little bit of editing, and then never did it again until now.
That's super dope. I will have a look at it in the future.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I've had quite a few good feedback from people.
Yeah.
People said it was helpful. I was quite worried about putting it out there because I was it's the first time I've made my workflow public, and
Yeah.
my workflow for this is quite a traditional one. You know, it's just high poly to low poly, and then texturing and substance.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't feel like it was, you know,
It's
who am
still,
I to be giving advice kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah. It's just a standard basic workflow most of the artists are using, right? But
Hmm.
on the program side and on the structure side, but your maybe your substance painter approaches are pretty different. Like from maybe you're using other masks and levels and stuff.
Yeah, maybe. I do hope people learn something new from it. I definitely most of the things are just tips and tricks that I've picked up from from other places here and there. Which I think I mentioned them in the tutorial. Like if I'm trying out a certain approach to something, I'll normally say like, "Oh, I saw this in this video,"
Mm-hmm.
so that people know where they can look for if they want to kind of delve a bit deeper.
All right. So, did you? You're pretty sure. I'm pretty sure you did. You did watch the Unreal 5 engine announcement video, right?
Yes, I think everyone did.
Uh,
Twitter just exploded.
How was your mood after the video?
I was pretty hyped, like
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah.
I, I think it's a very good thing. It was like an amazing announcement to get people motivated and to get people talking about next gen. I think there's always that, before a new generation comes out, there's always like a big buzz, like, and a lot of speculation as well, like, oh, what's it gonna mean? I do think some people have higher expectations. I don't think things are gonna change overnight.
No. Yeah.
Um, but it's
Exactly.
interesting. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, that's pretty exactly. I can't imagine that the industry is changing overnight with all these new yeah announcements.
No, and I actually saw an interesting tweet. I can't remember who from, but basically saying that it was basically cautioning people against getting getting their expectations too high, because apparently the Unreal 4 demo was very similar and promised a lot of things that kind of didn't materialize as people expected, or maybe just didn't materialize till very like late in the dev cycle. I've not actually watched it, so I can't comment, but it was interesting to hear someone's perspective on that.
Yeah. So I would be interested on your perspective from pop art, prop art side. So would you say with all the yeah all the poly budgets and stuff, how are you gonna think about that?
Um, I don't think it will be as insane as the video made out.
Yeah.
Or at least not yet. I don't think it will be a case of like, oh, we just got poly budgets entirely. I think there still needs to be some discipline, and I definitely don't think new artists or students should deprioritize learning optimization. I think
Mm-hmm.
that it's still going to be a thing for a few years. But in terms of kind of my trajectory, I am wondering whether photogrammetry is going to be the norm, and kind of handmade assets maybe reserved for games with more of like a distinct style, kind of like Borderlands or
Yeah.
Dishonored, which kind of they're high poly, they're very high fidelity, but they're stylized, or things that can't be scanned, like from historic things that just don't exist anymore, or sci-fi, obviously.
Yeah. Stuff that doesn't exist.
But
Yeah.
realistic stuff, yeah, I wonder if like scans are going to take over. I've actually started ordering kit to. I've never done photogrammetry before.
Mm-hmm.
But last weekend I spent some time reading up on the different types of scanning and the equipment that you need, and I my poor bank account before payday, because I started ordering kit so that I can begin dabbling in it. And so I've got my tripod on the way. I've got some light boxes. I've got some LED lights coming. So because I feel like it's if I don't fill that skill gap, you always risk becoming obsolete as the industry moves on.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to the poly side, it would be just a waste if the stuff doesn't look better to just put out the polys and yeah, just throw it in the engine and it looks good and it's amazing, but it would be just a waste. Like when it comes also
Exactly.
to disk size for a PlayStation 5 game, for example, these is not yeah, infinite.
And it's poly budgets aren't everything. There's a lot of other things in a game that can be quite expensive. Animations, your
Mm-hmm.
crowd simulations, like fluid particles, just like the way the design works and stuff. Like there's a lot of things that can begin to bloat a game without poly count even coming into it. So yeah, I definitely don't think it should be a case of people just slapping in whatever. Um, I can imagine it getting out of hand very quickly. I think it's just good to demonstrate, that we are moving in that direction towards hardware that can support, a lot of information. Because I think there was a worry with the last gen that I've forgotten what it's called. There's that thing where I cannot remember. It's something about where the speed of processors like doubles every year
Yeah,
or
I know
something.
what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, but there was a worry that had started to flatten out. Like we couldn't go much smaller in terms of chip size and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So it's nice to see that there are still, like improvements and advancements to be made.
Jobs for us.
Yeah.
So, as you having been the art lead or are art lead at Decagon, are you interested in the production side of games? So, is this something that you could think of like a lead artist or something?
So I was a lead artist at Coasting. I was a senior artist at
Oh,
Decagon.
senior.
But
Sorry.
they did. So yeah, it was funny because the podcast I was on for Alex Beddoes is the
Mm-hmm.
game dev discussion. Yeah, I had been offered a lead position at Decagon, and then a week later got the job offer from Ubisoft, and
Mm.
I had to weigh the two up. So yeah, it
Okay.
all kind of came at once. But yeah, so yeah, I was an art lead at Coasting, and I actually the reason I ended up taking the Ubisoft job was because I wanted some time to go back to just being my own artist. When I was a lead, there was so much stuff I had to deal with. It was just not art. Like as you say, it was a lot of production, a lot of uh,
Organizing.
organization, client relations,
Excel.
and Jira management and
Yeah.
people management as well. Like making sure that everyone had work and that everyone was doing things on time and that everyone was free of blockers and had the right software and there was a lot of meetings that I had to have with production about budget and milestones, and it was I wouldn't change it because I think it was incredibly beneficial for my career and my confidence as well. But in order to like feel like an artist, I was then coming home and doing work for Decagon and doing personal work. So I was just working like pretty much 24/7 to try and still be doing art for social media and to keep myself relevant as well. So
Yes.
it's not something I would rule out in the future, but right now it's not something I want to go back to.
Okay, so you just wanted to be more to be just a real artist and not just a lead artist where you have to handle stuff and you don't have find any more time to work on the real
Yeah,
art.
and I think it changes in studio by studio. There are some studios where the leads can do both.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I personally wanted to take a step back and concentrate just on my skills as well, especially as we just talked about with all these new developments and next gen around the corner. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't letting myself fall behind.
Yeah, so you want to be on track with with the development side.
Hmm. But there was a lot of rewarding things in leading. It was because in the last place I was also responsible for like the actual art style, and so
Mm-hmm.
that was quite nice to have. Kind of, it felt like obviously it wasn't just me on the project and it wasn't me responsible, but it felt like I had a little bit of ownership of like a project, um, and I got to make a lot of the creative decisions in terms of with like the publisher and stuff. So that was really intimidating, and it meant that I had to have confidence in my decision and just make a decision sometimes. But it was really rewarding, especially when things started to come together. It's still in development now. I left before the end, but yeah, it was nice to see it running and be like, oh, an actual game that I've been a lead on. It's cool.
I think when you become a lead artist, you really need to get good in decision making, like weighing things up against each other.
Oh, totally. And sometimes you won't make the right decision, and sometimes you just have to run with that and be able to live with like the consequences of your decisions, whatever they may be.
So when do you find time to work on personal stuff at the moment, as you being a senior prop artist at Ubisoft, and you will have much stuff to do, I guess?
Yes, a lot to do. But actually it's a little bit easier at the moment because obviously the quarantine's going on, so I'm not commuting, which is, for all its like terribleness, it's really nice to get up at 20 to 9 and start work at 9 in my pajamas.
Yeah, you're a night worker.
But yeah, because I'm not freelancing anymore. Because I think like a lot of companies have non-compete clauses, so you're not able to obviously work on something that would infringe. So I've shelved my freelancing, so I've actually got my evenings free to do personal stuff. Whereas previously I'd done a lot of freelance, or I'd done asset packs or bits and bobs. So now I'm just fully focusing on personal work and also chilling out as well. I'm doing a lot of baking. I've never really baked before, but I've seen everyone else making bread and cakes, and I have all this time.
So yeah, the quarantine is bringing out some new bakeries, I guess. Everyone is baking at the moment.
They really are, and my Instagram feed is just full of it.
Oh.
But it's quite nice to have something that's not in front of a screen.
Yeah. For me, it's sports.
So yeah, we can't really go out in
yeah.
the UK. Well, we can, but I don't know. It's a weird grey area at the moment. But yeah, going back to the personal work stuff. It's been, I think this quarantine has been, well, at least from what I've seen online and for me personally, I've seen so many people learning new things. Like I've seen loads of programmers take up drawing, and I've seen a lot of people on Twitter, starting to do tutorials that they'd never had time to do before, which I think is just, it's a really nice wholesome thing to see. I've certainly been doing some tutorials that, were always, like Marvelous Designer. I really wanted to learn that for ages.
Yeah, I saw it on Twitter.
Just something I never really had time to do until now, when I got too much time. And it was just a case of sit down and work my way through it. I haven't got any, like I said, I've got no freelance stuff that needs to be doing. I've got no personal deadlines. So it's been nice in that respect.
So, as you just being a prop artist, are you also interested in environment art? Is this some field that kind of, interests you?
Yeah. So I am like on and off working on a scene that I've been working on and off for about a year and a half. It got put on the back burner when I joined Decagon because I was, like I said previously, I was working a lot. But yeah, I'm working on an Unreal scene that's set in like a cafe. So I do want to go back to that at some point. I always get asked about it, but I just say yes to things, and then just shelving it.
Try
but no, I do really like environments, and I'm used to working in the engine. Like I have a second website, a personal website, where I have all like my stylized art, and a lot of that was in Unity. So yeah, I'm quite comfortable working in engines. It's just not showcased on my ArtStation.
So you're always kind of dipping into the environment art.
Yeah, I'm fine setting up like materials and working with shaders and set dressing. I think the only thing I struggle with, it's not that I struggle with the setup, I just lighting art basically. I have such respect for lighting artists, because I can like put lights in a scene and get it lit, but it never looks
Never
as
pops. Yeah.
cinematic
Yeah.
as some people that I see on Twitter. I'm just like, oh, it just looks like a film. Which is maybe something I should look at in quarantine. Maybe I should study cinematography and lighting more. Add that to my
This is
list.
another topic for you.
Yeah. Just keep adding things to the backlog.
On side to making bread, maybe.
Yeah. And scanning some bits and bobs.
Yeah.
I'm going to be like one of those people that just goes around my house like, finding things to scan. Be all sorts of random stuff going online.
So can you give us a short difference between a prop artist and an environment artist?
Sure. I mean, I can only talk about it from my perspective,
Yeah, sure.
but I think, the main difference is one is on kind of asset creation, and the other, like the level artist, would just work in the engine, taking assets and arranging and setting them and working with level designers much more closely. They might touch, again, it depends on the studio and the project, but they might touch some asset creation. Maybe the prop artists or the content creators are swamped and they really need like a window or a trim sheet or something. Then they might jump onto making that themselves. So environment artists still need to be good at kind of art and creation. They might just not be doing it as much like day to day. And I think they need to have like all art is about composition, right? But I think level artists need to have a really good eye for like the bigger picture. And a big everyone needs to understand metrics, but I think it comes into play more when you're working with design and you're working with like actual levels that the player is going to move it around with. Whereas I think if you're on content creation, it might be more like the info is passed down and you just have to adhere to it. Again, depends on the studio. I've always worked closely with programmers and designers, so I'm quite used to working with them. Like, I'm not someone who just squirrels away and does my art and hope it's for the best, because that's where problems arise and time gets wasted.
Yeah. All right. I think we got every topic I wanted to ask you. Yeah, I think we got it covered. So, is there something from your side you just wanna tell the world?
I I hadn't prepped anything. Oh no.
Okay.
Um.
Check out her tutorial. I think it's a good value.
Yes, I hope people find it useful. If anyone does go through with it and has any questions, they're more than welcome to reach out. I've had a couple of people emailing me already, so yeah,
so
I'm
you
always
did
happy
get
to
your
help.
feedback, right?
Oh, totally, yeah.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, likewise, if anyone ever needed any like portfolio reviews or anything, you can email me. I believe that my email is on ArtStation, but I'm gonna have to double check because I'm not sure now I've said it.
I will link your portfolio as well, so everyone can check you out.
Yeah, my goal for the end of the year is to, because this year with the release of the collab stuff from Decagon, it's finally gone on to 2 lines long. So now my goal for the end of the year is to have 3 lines of images.
I got you. I'm currently looking at your portfolio. Yeah.
That's how I measure if I've done enough work, is how many lines have I got on ArtStation now.
So you have like now you have 10. You have 10 projects. So yeah.
So what do I need to get up to? 15,
you
is
need
it?
4 more projects. Then you have two
okay,
full lines, and your 15th will be.
Right, that's my goal for the end of the year. That and getting my scene done, which I've been promising for months. But yeah.
You got this, I guess. You got lots of time next to making bread.
Yeah, my bread actually turned out all right. Got a little bit burnt on the bottom, but for my first ever loaf of bread, wasn't bad.
All right. So, Hannah, thank you so much for being on my show.
Well, thank you for having me on. It's been really good.
I will put all your information in the info box so people can check you out and also can check out your tutorial. And yeah, I hope we'll listen. The people will listen to us.
Well, have a brilliant day, a brilliant weekend.
You too. Enjoy your
Yeah,
day.
bye everyone.
All right. Bye bye.